The Rockets coming in from a 2024 season where it ranked 8-5, 4-4 in the MAC, had some slip-ups that were a little unexpected and some battles that they won that nobody expected them to. I mean, a little bit of both. Head coach Jason Candle still there, no coaching moves, which feels like a story alone within these G5 previews. And we got to start on the offensive side of the ball with the guy on the cover of the episode, Tucker Gleason. He's back. Threw for over 2,800 yards last year, 24 touchdowns, and only 8 picks. So values the football. Going to need to do that again this year. I thought his decision-making was pretty good last year. Went back, watched some of their clips. Big-time wins on the road within the SEC. Obviously, you kind of get a good idea of whether or not a G5 program can make a run at something. But then they had slip-ups later in the year that just didn't make sense. Like, you can't go on the road and beat Mississippi State and then lose to Akron second to the last week of the season. It just can't happen. So you got to avoid those games this year, but a lot of people expect them to, and we'll tell you why later. Going back to the offense, the weapons on the outside are there. In my mind, you return Junior Vandervoss III. He's first-team All-MAC last year. And then you add a nice little transfer piece from NIU, who not this past season, but the season before was All-MAC, and Travion Rudolph. That's a nice addition for Gleason. If he can get some extra time back there in the pocket, you never know. You see, those numbers could take a bump. It could be 3,200 yards this year, and that's what most of Toledo fans and MAC fans in general expect from this team. They also brought in, this is of note, and not often do we get to do this in G5 previews, but a 4-star, not a transfer, a commit, a high school recruit, 4-star kid, and Omar Mims as a recruit could make an impact as a freshman. You never know. You just don't see that very often. The running game took a massive step back for this program in 2024. In 2023, they averaged a good number of rushing yards a game. Last year, the offensive line, granted, the play calling was a part of it, but the offensive line kind of took a step back, and they weren't putting up as much rushing yards, which maybe led to those 4 MAC losses that really took them away from an even better season after winning on the road against Mississippi State. They do help that this year by bringing in a transfer that everybody should know this name because you've probably seen him somewhere. Chip Trainum. It's been all over the Power 4 map. Ohio State, Kentucky, had some injury issues. He's at Toledo now. So he hopefully offers you an experienced, at full health, viable option for this backfield. He's going to be running back number 1 for this group as long as he's healthy. The O-line, this is where kind of Toledo separates themselves in my mind. It's pretty stacked up. They have a nice depth heading into the 2025 season. You have returned 3 starters, which feels like news alone again in this conference. But then you add a Cincinnati and a Pitt transfer to join that group. Should be, like I said, that nice pocket, maybe a nice running lane for Chip Trainum from this offensive group. So I expect them to be even a step better than they were last year, which is why they're picked ahead in most media forums to win this conference. On the defensive side of the ball, there's a little bit fewer of question marks here. And I don't want to say the offense was full of question marks, but it feels like one unit or the other is really where the MAC is right now, is going to be the fallback. It's a pretty balanced attack of returning production in terms of the G5 and the MAC. Majority of the returning production comes from the secondary of this group. Guys like Avery Smith, Braden Alls, had led the team in interceptions last year with 4. Guys like that returning are going to be good for this group to have the stability to build off of. You retain the coaches, which is obviously massive news, just like we talked about with Ohio. But I think turnovers are going to be super important for this group. They didn't cause a lot of turnovers last year. And if they can do that this year, I think it just leads them to be where they're projected to be. Up front, they brought in some transfers. They're going to need to be sturdy for this group because they defended the rush really well sometimes and really terribly sometimes, which can kill you, as most know. So these transfers are going to need to be sturdy up front, rely on that experienced, cultured back end, and this team will take a step forward on defense as well. Overall, they're pretty much picked to win this conference or be in the conference title game by every media platform, and it's for good reason. And Tucker Gleason, a lot of it falls on his shoulders. You got to, similar to Navarro, you got to keep him upright. The offensive line, with the experience they brought back and the transfers they brought in, makes it seem like that's not going to be a problem. You know what else is going to be a problem? Just what I told you about Buffalo. The strength of schedule for this team is 133rd out of 136 teams. It's there. They can get to Detroit. I see a 9-win season. I see a 10-win season for this Toledo team. And I expect one of these two gentlemen sitting next to me to pick them to be in the conference title game along with me, along with most of the country. Guys, your thoughts on the Rockets, their schedule, whatever you're thinking, Jake. You're on mute, Jake. Nice. He took it off.
I'm good. This is not my first podcast. I am ready to put on the shield for the podcast here, and I say this with love because I do think that this is head and shoulders the most talented team in the conference. But how many times have we seen Toledo be the most talented team in the conference and come up short? Now, I know Candle has 2 conference titles under his belt in his time since taking over for my beloved Matt Campbell, but it makes me skeptical. I think this year is the year where they can take advantage. And honestly, I really truly say this. Outside of Kentucky, we'll see what happens when they go to Lexington. But I think this team could compete for that G5 spot in the playoff. I think the talent's there. But also, like losing to Akron at the end of the year
can't happen.
Kind of goes with what I'm saying. One of the years Candle won a title, they were 8-5. I mean, that's just one of the luckier draws. You need to go 11, 10 wins in this conference, in this league. And I think the talent is there to do it. I think really highly of this team. But sometimes I think, and I know the fan base loves Candle, and I know the players do. It's why they come back. But I'm just a little skeptical. But we'll save that for prediction time, I guess.
I also like the early season show we're going to get with the FCS guys Western Kentucky brought in and expects to have an explosive offense. They get a chance at redemption here in week 2 because Western Kentucky beat Toledo last year in a really close game. Now Western Kentucky travels out to play them on the road. So that should be a fun one in week 2 and one to note. JP, your thoughts on the Rockets?
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that feels like everybody in the conference understands that they are just a little bit of head and shoulders above everybody within the recruiting ranks and bringing guys in and talent acquisition.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean anything in the MAC. So like Jake said, like going to pick to win everything. We're picked to win everything a season ago. That's you got to do it, right? So saying the MAC team is going to grab that G5 bid is a lot because you got to have the conference respect first. So their bid in getting the G5 bid is going to require them to probably close if they play power conferences, win it or be close, and the rest of the MAC has got to make noise too.
And I know it was Mississippi State last year, but it means something. They still went to Starksville and just, I mean, blew the doors
Mississippi State wasn't like that bad that early in the season. Like they didn't know that they were that bad yet.
And so I know Kentucky's going to be improved this year. They're not going to be as bad as Mississippi State, but that's still like you win that game, you go 11-1, 12-0. That resume is most definitely good enough to get you in that G5 spot.
I love the mention though, JK. And now you got me rethinking. You get to look into this team, see what the fans are saying, and then you think back, and then you draw back to like what has Toledo done with the teams that we've talked about this before.
They're talking about Chip Trainum now. Before I get clipped for this,
here we go.
He's not Ashton Genty, but the way they're talking about him and what I've heard in like podcasts, like they think this guy is going to be a dude in the MAC.
Yeah, they do. I mean, he's been the amount of stops this guy's made, man. Arizona State, Ohio State, Kentucky. Like this dude's just bouncing.
First game of the year. Great opportunity.
He gets a little chance to make a name back at his old stomping grounds. He could do that. Yeah. Stop. No puns. No puns during preview season.